Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking you on a journey through some pretty mind-bending ideas about the nature of knowledge, the universe, and humanity's place in all of it.
Yeah, we'll be exploring all that through the work of physicist and philosopher David Deutsch and his really thought-provoking book, The Beginning of Infinity.
This book really challenged some of my basic assumptions about how we understand the world.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that really struck me was Deutsch's idea that appearances can be deceiving.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying we can know a lot about reality, even stuff way beyond what we can directly see or touch.
Right. Like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, how is that even possible?
Well, think about how astrophysicists can tell us what's happening in the core of a star,
Right?
even though no one's ever been there.
Yeah, no one's ever actually been there.
They can do this by building on this foundation of scientific theories and observations and constantly refining their understanding.
So it's not just about what we can see or touch then. It's about the power of explanation, right? And Deutsch really keeps coming back to this idea of good explanations,
Yeah.
but what makes one explanation better than another?
Well, good explanations are hard to vary. Like, if you change a small detail, the whole thing falls apart. Deutsch compares the Greek myth of Persephone explaining the seasons to the scientific explanation of the Earth's tilt.
Okay.
You can change details in the myth and it doesn't really affect the explanation,
Right.
but you can't tweak the Earth's tilt even a little bit without completely messing up the explanation of why we have seasons.
Oh, that's such a clear example. It's like the difference between a flimsy house of cards
Yeah.
and a solid, well-built structure.
Exactly. A good scientific explanation is this like tightly woven tapestry of cause and effect. And that actually brings us to another really important idea that Deutsch emphasizes, which is fallibilism.
Okay.
And that's the understanding that we can always be wrong. But we can get closer to the truth by constantly searching for better explanations.
So it's not about finding like the one ultimate true answer. It's more about continually refining our understanding.
Yeah.
Does that mean that even our best scientific explanations, like what we consider a fact today,
Yeah.
could be totally different tomorrow?
You're hitting on a key point there. Deutsch talks about the reach of explanations.
Okay.
Some explanations might be really accurate in a limited context, but they might not apply at a larger scale.
Okay.
Like take Newtonian physics, for example.
Okay.
Worked great for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
But then Einstein came along, and his theories were needed to explain things like pulsars and the behavior of the entire universe.
Wow. So even something as fundamental as physics can be superseded. It's like there's always a deeper level to uncover. But here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Deutsch also talks about how we can learn about things beyond the physical world,
Yes.
like abstract mathematical concepts.
Right. He uses that fascinating example of Hofstadter's domino computer, which is basically this physical system of dominoes that are arranged to compute prime numbers, showing that this abstract concept, like a prime number, can have a real observable effect on a physical system.
Yeah.
It's not just some theoretical idea floating out there.
Right.
It can interact with the world in a very tangible way.
It's almost like magic, the way these abstract ideas can influence reality.
Yeah.
So we're not just physical beings bound by like the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Our minds can actually grapple with these abstract truths that exist independently of the physical world.
Yeah.
It almost makes you wonder if there's more out there than we can even perceive right now.
It's a question that's driven philosophers and scientists for centuries, and Deutsch tackles it head on. Think about the difference between Roman numerals and our modern number system.
Okay.
Roman numerals were limited in what they could express,
Right.
but our current system, with place values and zero, opened up a whole new world of mathematical possibilities. It was a jump to universality, as Deutsch puts it.
So by creating these universal systems like alphabets and our modern number system, we actually expanded the reach of our own minds.
Is that why he says this jump to universality is so crucial for progress?
Absolutely. It lets us build on knowledge in ways that were previously impossible and create these increasingly complex and sophisticated systems.
So this ability to understand and manipulate abstractions is really what sets us apart in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established that humans are pretty good at abstract thinking. But what about artificial intelligence? Can we actually create machines that can think like we do? Deutsch delves into the Turing test,
Right.
which aims to determine if a machine can exhibit intelligent behavior indistinguishable from a human. He seems to think it's not as simple as it sounds.
Remember the chatbot Elbit?
Oh, yeah.
For a brief time, it actually fooled some people into thinking it was human.
It did.
But as Deutsch points out, mimicking human conversation isn't the same as true understanding.
Right. It's like a parrot reciting Shakespeare.
It sounds impressive, but the parrot doesn't get the meaning behind the words. So is Deutsch saying that true intelligence is about more than just mimicking behavior? Is it about the ability to actually create new knowledge?
Exactly.
Okay.
He even suggests that artificial evolution, as it's currently conceived, might not be true evolution at all.
Hmm.
The knowledge might be coming from the programmer, not from the evolutionary process itself.
Oh.
Which raises the question, is the machine really learning, or is it just following instructions?
That's a really thought-provoking idea. It challenges our assumptions about what AI can actually achieve. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's tackle another mind-bending concept that Deutsch dives into: infinity.
Ah, yes, infinity. Not all infinities are created equal, are they? Have you ever considered that the infinite possibilities within a continuum, like a line, are a higher order of infinity than the infinite set of natural numbers?
Oh, that's a new one for me. How can one infinity be bigger than another? My brain is already starting to hurt.
Yeah, it's a mind-boggling concept for everyone, but it has these really profound implications for understanding the nature of reality.
Mm.
And it leads us to maybe the most mind-bending concept of all, the multiverse.
Hold on, are we talking about parallel universes and alternate realities here? Is that even a scientific concept, or were we venturing into science fiction territory?
It might sound like science fiction, but Deutsch argues that our universe is just one of many,
Okay.
and he believes quantum physics actually provides glimpses into this greater reality.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but totally lost.
Yeah.
How can something as complex as the multiverse even be possible?
Well, Deutsch uses this thought experiment involving a spaceship transporter that malfunctions in one universe but not another.
Okay.
And it helps illustrate some key concepts like this idea of fungibility.
Fungibility, I'm not familiar with that term.
Imagine you have two identical coins.
Okay.
In the everyday world, they're interchangeable.
Yeah.
But in the quantum world, instances of objects, even identical ones, can become different. It's as if the coins develop unique identities leading to apparent randomness in the splitting of histories.
So instead of a single timeline, there's this branching tree of possibilities, each with its own unique outcome. Is that what Deutsch means by the splitting of histories?
That's exactly it. And he argues that this multiverse view is actually essential for understanding quantum phenomena like interference. You know, it's like seeing ripples in a pond.
Yeah.
You might not see the rock that caused them, but, something must have disturbed the water.
Mm-hmm.
We see these ripples in the quantum world, and the multiverse offers an explanation for their existence.
This is definitely heavy stuff. We've covered a lot of ground, from the power of explanations to abstract knowledge and the mind-boggling concept of the multiverse. Where do we go from here?
I think we've just scratched the surface. Let's take a deeper dive into the implications of the multiverse, and we'll explore how these ideas connect to other really fascinating concepts like bad philosophy, the metaphors we use to understand our place in the universe, and even the nature of beauty itself. Buckle up, it's going to be an exciting ride.
Okay, my brain is definitely still buzzing from that multiverse talk.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot to process, but also kind of exciting to think about all those possibilities out there.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all that, let's bring it back down to earth for a bit.
Yeah.
Deutsch also explores some popular metaphors for humanity's place in the universe, specifically the spaceship Earth metaphor and the principle of mediocrity. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, both metaphors offer some interesting perspectives, but they can also be kind of misleading if you take them too literally. Like the spaceship Earth metaphor, with its emphasis on limited resources and the need for careful management, sometimes paints this pretty pessimistic picture of humanity's future.
Yeah, I get that. I always pictured us crammed in this tiny spaceship, arguing over who gets the last oxygen tank.
Right.
But you're saying Deutsch has a different take.
He argues that while we should definitely be mindful of our planet's resources, the spaceship Earth metaphor can sometimes lead to this sense of helplessness and stifle our creativity. It's like saying we're just passengers along for the ride, when in reality we actually have the power to shape our own destiny.
So it's not about just passively accepting our fate. It's about actively shaping it.
Mm.
What about the principle of mediocrity? That one always struck me as a bit depressing. Are we really just average, insignificant specks in this vast and different universe?
The principle of mediocrity basically suggests that there's nothing particularly special about Earth or humanity.
Right.
But Deutsch points out that this line of thinking can kind of downplay the significance of human knowledge and creativity. Just because we haven't encountered other intelligent life yet doesn't mean we're not unique in our ability to understand and transform the world around us.
That's a good point. It's like saying, just because you haven't found a winning lottery ticket yet means they don't exist.
Right.
So where does that leave us? Are we insignificant or are we something more?
Well, Deutsch argues that humans are not insignificant, and neither is the knowledge we create.
Okay.
We have this incredible capacity for creativity and problem solving. We can understand these abstract concepts, build complex systems, and even contemplate the very nature of reality. That makes us pretty special, at least within our own corner of the multiverse.
Okay, that's a much more optimistic view. And speaking of optimism, Deutsch challenges conventional ideas about optimism and pessimism. I'm curious to hear his take on that.
He argues that both optimism and pessimism can be blinding if they're not grounded in reason.
Okay.
Blind optimism can lead to complacency and unrealistic expectations,
Right.
while blind pessimism can paralyze us with fear and prevent us from even trying to solve problems.
So it's not about being blindly optimistic or pessimistic. It's about finding that sweet spot in between. What does Deutsch consider true optimism then?
He describes true optimism as this belief in the power of problem solving. It's not about assuming everything will magically work out. It's about having faith in our ability to overcome challenges through knowledge, creativity, and ingenuity.
He uses a great example to illustrate this, the idea of trying to hide Earth from potentially hostile aliens.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a classic example of misapplied pessimism.
Exactly.
It assumes that we can't solve the problem of defending ourselves, so we should just cower in fear and hope they don't notice us.
Right. It's this defeatist attitude that really underestimates humanity's potential. Deutsch believes that with enough knowledge, we can overcome any obstacle, even something as daunting as an alien invasion.
Now that's what I call optimism. But wait, there's one idea of his that really threw me for a loop. He actually proposes that death is a problem to be solved, not a given. Isn't that a bit far-fetched?
It might sound radical, but consider this. For most of human history, things like flying or communicating instantly across vast distances were considered impossible.
Right.
But through knowledge and innovation, we overcame those challenges. Deutsch believes that death is just another problem waiting to be solved.
So he's not saying we'll all become immortal tomorrow, but that with enough knowledge, we could potentially overcome death.
Right.
It's a mind-blowing concept for sure. But I like his optimism. It's refreshing.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that the potential for knowledge creation is essentially limitless. There's no reason to assume that any problem, even death, is inherently unsolvable.
Okay, so we've talked about the nature of knowledge, the multiverse, and even tackled the big D. What other grand ideas does Deutsch explore in The Beginning of Infinity?
Well, he delves into the realm of politics,
Oh.
arguing that good political systems are actually essential for fostering the growth of knowledge. He believes they should allow for bad policies to be removed peacefully and efficiently, creating this dynamic environment where new ideas can flourish.
He uses the example of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives.
Right.
They have very different rules and structures,
Yeah.
yet historically they've often been controlled by the same party. What's the significance of that?
It suggests that there's this deeper convergence of ideas happening beneath the surface-level disagreements. It's driven by this process of problem-solving and the pursuit of knowledge, which actually transcends those partisan divides. Good ideas tend to win out in the end, regardless of political affiliation.
That's a hopeful thought. It reminds us that even in the midst of all the political turmoil, there's this deeper process at work pushing us toward better solutions. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a little less, well, political. Deutsch also explores the nature of beauty. I was fascinated by his argument that beauty isn't just subjective, that there's this objective aspect to it connected to good explanations.
He uses the example of flowers.
Okay.
Their beauty is the result of their evolution for pollination. They've developed these intricate shapes, colors, and scents that appeal to both humans and insects, albeit for different reasons.
Yeah.
Their beauty isn't arbitrary. It's actually a consequence of this deep underlying process.
So we can appreciate a flower's beauty on this purely aesthetic level. But there's also this deeper level of appreciation that comes from understanding the evolutionary processes that shaped it. It's like adding another dimension to the whole experience of beauty.
Exactly. And this connects back to the idea of good explanations. You know, beauty, like knowledge, can be understood and appreciated on multiple levels. It's not just about personal preference. There's this deeper objective aspect to it that we can discover through exploration and understanding.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more concept that Deutsch explores. Memes. Now, I know the word meme usually brings to mind funny images and internet jokes,
Right.
but Deutsch uses it in this much broader sense, right?
That's right. He describes memes as ideas that replicate themselves much like genes.
Okay.
They can be anything from simple concepts to complex belief systems.
Hmm.
And he argues that cultures are actually made up of memes, and that these rational and anti-rational memes are constantly competing for dominance.
He points out that static societies, those that stifle creativity and cling to outdated ideas, are dominated by anti-rational memes, while more dynamic societies, those that embrace change and innovation, are driven by these rational memes. Where does he see the West fitting into this framework?
He believes that the West is in this transition from a more static society to a more dynamic one.
Okay.
But these anti-rational memes still hold a lot of sway.
Right.
He points to things like rote learning and unquestioning obedience to authority, which are still kind of prevalent in a lot of aspects of our culture, despite our emphasis on critical thinking and innovation.
So it's this constant battle between these opposing forces. It's almost like there's this mimetic ecosystem playing out within society with different ideas vying for survival and dominance.
That's a great analogy, and it highlights how important it is to be aware of the memes that are shaping our culture and actually making conscious choices about which ones we embrace.
Right.
We need to cultivate this critical mindset and be willing to challenge outdated or even harmful ideas, even if they're deeply ingrained in our culture.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive, from the metaphors we use to understand our place in the universe, to the power of problem solving, the nature of beauty, and even this intriguing world of memes. What's next on our agenda?
Well, I think we've explored some of the foundational ideas in the beginning of Infinity, but the journey doesn't end there. Deutsch goes on to paint this truly awe-inspiring vision of the future of creativity and what it means to live in a universe with infinite possibilities. Are you ready to step into that future?
All right, I'm ready to step into that future. So Deutsch seems to be saying that the potential for human creativity is like limitless.
Yeah.
But for most of human history, it hasn't really seemed that way. How does he explain that?
Well, he argues that for a long time, we humans weren't that different from other animals in terms of creativity. Like, sure, we used tools, we communicated, we even domesticated other species, but so did some other animals. The key difference, he argues, is our unique ability to create new knowledge through this process of conjecture and criticism. We don't just learn by rote or imitate what we see. We come up with new ideas and then test them against reality.
He makes this really fascinating distinction between the way humans learn and the way animals like apes and parrots imitate.
Right.
Like apes might learn to open a nut by watching another ape, but they don't actually get the underlying principles.
Yeah.
And parrots can mimic sounds, but they don't understand the meaning behind the words. It's like the difference between blindly following a recipe and actually understanding like the science of cooking.
Exactly. Humans can acquire knowledge on this much deeper level.
Right.
We can grasp abstract concepts, figure out complex systems, and even come up with entirely new ways of thinking and doing.
So this ability to create and manipulate abstractions is really at the heart of human creativity.
Yeah.
And it's what allows us to continually build upon our knowledge and push the boundaries of what's possible.
Right.
So if this capacity for abstract thought has always been within us, what changed? Why did human creativity seem to just explode in recent centuries?
Well, Deutsch argues that the real turning point was the scientific revolution.
Okay.
That's when we started to systematically apply reason and evidence to our understanding of the world. This led to like this whole cascade of new discoveries and innovations that totally transformed human society.
It's like we unlocked a secret door in our minds.
Yeah.
And suddenly this whole new universe of possibilities just opened up.
Yeah.
And Deutsch seems to think this is just the beginning. What does he see for the future of creativity?
He believes that the potential is truly mind-boggling. As we continue to develop new technologies and expand our knowledge of the universe, the possibilities for creative expression will become virtually limitless. He even speculates about what art might look like when we can design new senses and qualia.
Hold on, qualia. Remind me what that is again?
Qualia are like those subjective experiential qualities of our conscious experience, like the redness of red or the feeling of pain.
Yeah.
They're like the raw feels of our inner world. Deutsch suggests that we might one day be able to design new qualia, allowing us to experience reality in ways that are currently unimaginable.
Wow. That's a pretty wild idea. Imagine, like, experiencing beauty in ways that we can't even conceive of right now. It makes you wonder what kinds of art and music we could create if we could tap into those new dimensions of experience.
It's this really tantalizing glimpse into a future where the boundaries of creativity are constantly being pushed.
Yeah.
And it's not just about art and music either. You know, this kind of thinking could revolutionize every aspect of our lives, from the way we design our cities to the way we interact with each other and the world around us.
So if the potential for human creativity is truly unbounded, what are the biggest obstacles standing in our way? Is it just a matter of technological advancement, or are there like deeper challenges we need to overcome?
Deutsch argues that the biggest obstacle isn't actually technological, it's cultural.
Okay.
He believes that our culture is still heavily influenced by these anti-rational memes, ideas that discourage critical thinking, stifle creativity, and promote conformity over individuality.
He points out that things like rote learning and unquestioning obedience to authority are still prevalent in education.
Yeah.
Even though we claim to value critical thinking and innovation, it's like we're sending mixed messages to the next generation.
Exactly. We need to actively cultivate a culture that values reason, creativity, and the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. A culture that encourages people to question assumptions, challenge the status quo, and explore new ideas without being afraid of reprisal.
So it's not enough to just develop new technologies.
Yeah.
We also need to evolve our culture to keep pace with those advancements. It's a call to action, both for individuals and for society as a whole. We need to foster this spirit of curiosity, open-mindedness, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
Yeah, that's the essence of what Deutsch is getting at in the beginning of Infinity. It's a celebration of human potential and this powerful reminder that our journey of knowledge creation is just beginning.
Wow, what an incredible journey this has been. We've explored some truly mind-bending ideas, from the nature of knowledge and the power of explanations to the multiverse, the future of creativity, and the importance of fostering a rational and dynamic culture.
It's been quite a deep dive into some of the most fundamental questions about our place in the universe and the infinite possibilities that lie ahead.
If you're anything like me, you're probably feeling this mix of awe and excitement, and maybe even a little bit of existential vertigo. But most importantly, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and left you with a renewed sense of wonder about the world.
And remember, the quest for knowledge is never ending. What questions are you left with? What aspects of reality will you seek to understand better? The beginning of Infinity is just that, a beginning. The real deep dive starts now.